I was reborn on the day when my sister and I were choosing our future husbands. Suddenly, I discovered I could hear other people's inner thoughts. I heard my sister thinking, "This time I must grab a good husband early." Then she hastily dragged away the gentle man I had married in my previous life, leaving me with the domestic abuser who had beaten her daily before. I laughed to myself. Did she really believe the man I had previously married had such a wonderful character? I found myself reborn on that fateful day of husband selection. Across the dining table sat two men of similar age. One was William, the eldest son of the Morgan family with a cold demeanor, and the other was Thomas, William's younger half-brother, known for his gentle temperament. "This time I must grab a good husband early," echoed a female voice in my ears, my sister's thoughts, though her lips hadn't moved. Her eyes were fixed on Thomas. "I'll snatch you away soon," her inner voice continued. That's when I realized I hadn't just been reborn. I could hear people's thoughts, and from these thoughts I gathered my sister had also been reborn. Otherwise, how could she have said such things? Sure enough, the next moment she walked over and sat beside Thomas, looking at him shyly. "Hello, I'm Victoria. I like you." My father suddenly declared, "Olivia, since your sister has chosen Thomas, you'll marry William." Pride flashed in my sister's eyes as she thought, "In this life, you'll take the beatings meant for me." In my previous life, Victoria had married William. Though he was exceptionally skilled in business and worked constantly, rumors circulated about his frigidity. My sister attempted intimacy with him multiple times but was always driven away with bruises. Eventually, since she never conceived, William's mother determined something was wrong with her body and expelled her from the Morgan family. Meanwhile, Thomas, whom I had married, though lacking significant power in the family, provided well enough for me. He accompanied me daily, shopping, dining, and dating, spoiling me completely. Everyone in the Morgan family knew we had a wonderful relationship. Later, William mysteriously died of poisoning, and Thomas inherited the family company. My status in the Morgan family suddenly soared. Jealous, Victoria deliberately crashed into me while I was shopping, and we both died. "All right, Father, I actually prefer William," I replied with a smile and sat beside him. This man's aura was truly imposing. Sitting next to him, I felt chilled, afraid to speak. No wonder my sister had suffered such beatings in my previous life. I tried to hear his thoughts, but his mind was silent. However, when Thomas smiled at my sister, I heard him think, "What a beautiful little darling." Those words sent shivers through me. Instinctively, I grabbed William's hand. Though his demeanor was cold, his hand felt surprisingly warm. He glanced at me, and I quickly released his grip. Despite his intimidating appearance, I believed staying with William was preferable to being with that viper Thomas. In this new life, I was determined to change my tragic fate. I would earn substantial money, become independent, and rely on no one. My sister and I held our weddings together, just as we had in my previous life. Back then, William hadn't attended the ceremony. Instead, Thomas arrived early that morning. Everyone said he was the more considerate husband. History repeated itself. Thomas, wearing a white suit, hurriedly came to collect my sister. Passing by me, Victoria looked smug. "Sister, why hasn't William come for you?" I merely smiled. "Don't concern yourself with me, sister. Just take care of yourself." My response visibly upset her. "Laugh while you can," she thought bitterly. "I'd like to see if you'll still be laughing when the beatings start." She descended the stairs with Thomas, but it was far too early for such predictions. The final laughter remained uncertain. William's absence from the wedding subjected me, as in my previous life, to considerable gossip and strange looks. At the reception, Victoria was excessively happy, boldly declaring to Thomas, "I love you," before kissing him. After the kiss, she stared at me with saliva-stained lips, clearly hoping to see me embarrassed. But I wouldn't react like I had in my previous life by angrily leaving the scene. That would only give attendees and the Morgan family something to gossip about. I recalled how people had once said Victoria lacked stability and didn't deserve to be the eldest daughter-in-law of the Morgan family. Consequently, after marriage, William's mother never showed her kindness, making her suffer tremendously. I took the microphone and smiled graciously at the audience. William is currently negotiating an important business deal. When it's time for toasts, I'll represent him. I hope you'll understand. Immediately, the audience stopped gossiping. William's mother, seated in the place of honor, regarded me with newfound respect. Victoria noticed his mother's changed expression, and anger flashed in her eyes. "Damn it, I'll definitely make you look bad during the tea ceremony." Having the ability to hear thoughts was truly advantageous. Everything became much more convenient. During the tea ceremony, I calmly lifted my dress and approached William's mother. Victoria had been watching me intently, silently counting in her mind. 1, 2, 3. At the critical moment, I simply sidestepped, going to fetch the tea instead. Victoria fell hard, getting completely soaked. Are you all right? Thomas hurried to help her up while inwardly cursing, "What a fool!" Everyone stared as William's mother filled with anger. "So clumsy. Do you still look like the second daughter-in-law of the Morgan family?" "I'm sorry, Mother. It wasn't intentional," Victoria quickly apologized, though resentment filled her eyes. "If I were her, I would avoid causing further trouble in this life and simply live peacefully. But since she didn't want me to have an easy life, I certainly wouldn't suppress my own feelings either." Due to Victoria's embarrassment, the wedding concluded hastily. William's mother didn't offer her a kind look from beginning to end, but when she looked at me, relief filled her eyes. She even held my hand, saying, "Olivia, I'll ensure William returns tonight to make it up to you." True to her word, William came back that evening. He opened the door while untying his tie, looking exhausted. I promptly went to take his clothes. "William, you must be tired today." He merely glanced at me without responding. In my previous life, I heard from servants that William hadn't returned on the wedding night. Victoria had waited alone in the new house, becoming everyone's laughingstock. She complained to William's mother but received only scolding, being told she was incompetent and couldn't hold a man's interest. While William bathed, I prepared the bed and made tea, then arranged the sofa for myself. When he emerged and saw this arrangement, surprise flashed in his eyes. "You take the bed. I'll sleep on the sofa," I quickly explained. "Olivia, are you playing hard to get?" He narrowed his eyes, studying me intently. Wearing only a bathrobe, his chest was partially exposed with water droplets glistening on his skin. He truly had an impressive physique. I quickly averted my gaze. "No, we had no feelings for each other before this. Sleeping together would be awkward for both of us. What do you suggest?" "After all, ours is merely a business marriage. Many couples like us live separate private lives while maintaining public appearances. I married you simply for financial security, without expecting emotional involvement." Hearing this, he suddenly smiled. "You're very perceptive. Coincidentally, I want the same arrangement. I was just an ordinary person without the exceptional ability or confidence to retain a man's heart. In the Morgan family, his attitude toward me depended entirely on his mother's disposition. I didn't want to end up like my sister in my previous life, targeted by everyone. That would bring me no benefit. Moreover, he had been violent toward my sister before, and I had no desire to provoke him and risk being beaten. So I chose peaceful coexistence in this life, planning to use his money to establish my own company and create my own success. I asked William to post a photo of our intertwined fingers on his social media with the caption, "Happy Wedding." This was to convince everyone that our relationship was perfectly fine. I also noticed his profile was extremely clean. Except for this post, he had never shared anything else. Someone like him must lead an incredibly dull daily existence. When bedtime came, he indeed took the large bed, leaving me alone on the sofa. He truly didn't know how to be gentle with women, but I should be grateful for small mercies. The next morning, William woke me as he did push-ups while listening to music. I'd heard that frigid men were typically skinny, but his 8-pack abs and muscular calves looked impressively powerful, far superior to Thomas's physique. "Stop staring, I'm not interested in you," he suddenly remarked, rising from the floor. "Get dressed and join me for breakfast." The implicit message was that this would make everyone believe our relationship was solid. Actually, I found him quite reasonable to talk with. Why had he beaten my sister in my previous life? After preparing myself, I accompanied William outside. We immediately encountered Victoria and Thomas walking toward us with their fingers intertwined. Victoria wore a strapless dress with visible hickeys on her collarbone and shoulders. She deliberately leaned closer to display them, filled with pride as she looked me up and down. Dressed so conservatively, she thought to herself, she must have been beaten and is covering the bruises. Then she smirked smugly. "Sister, how was your wedding night?" I wore a proper long-sleeve traditional dress today. Victoria seemed to have forgotten that William's mother despised vulgar outfits in the Morgan family, and makeup shouldn't be excessive either. But I chose not to remind her. I simply smiled. Sister, according to Morgan family hierarchy, you should address me as sister-in-law rather than sister. Her expression immediately soured, and she gritted her teeth unhappily. William hasn't even mentioned this form of address. Why should you demand it of me? Then she looked at William. William, say something. I sensed William beside me growing increasingly cold. In terms of his aura, Thomas was cursing in his mind. Damn fool. See if I don't teach you a lesson tonight. He pulled Victoria's hand, signaling her to stop talking, but she remained completely oblivious to the gravity of the situation. Thomas, what is the first family rule of the Morgan family? William asked softly. Thomas quickly lowered his head. Sorry, brother, I'll discipline her immediately. The next moment, he slapped Victoria across the face. Quickly greet your brother and sister-in-law. Victoria's face flushed red from the slap, and she was nearly exploding with anger. But recognizing that William wasn't someone to be trifled with, she could only mutter grudgingly, Good morning, brother and sister-in-law. Afterward, Thomas dragged her away. I remembered that the first rule of the Morgan family was that no one should disrespect the heir and his wife, nor address them directly by their first names. Violators would receive 30 lashes, and William was the Morgan family heir. In my previous life, to survive, I had memorized all the family rules. When Victoria married William and bullied me everywhere, it was precisely because I remembered this rule that I never dared disrespect her. I thought Victoria knew the family rules, but surprisingly, she hadn't remembered them at all, believing she could still bully me in this life. When we arrived at the dining room, Victoria had already received her punishment. Her face was pale, and she kept her head lowered, temporarily afraid to cause more trouble. I accurately noticed that under the dining table, Thomas had been pricking her hand with a needle. It's all your fault that I'm angry, he cursed inwardly as the force in his hand gradually increased. In my previous life, not long after I married him, he began abusing me and forbade me from telling anyone. I couldn't escape even if I wanted to, so I suffered tremendously. I'd much rather be with William than with him. Sister, you chose this husband in this life. You can't blame me. When William's mother arrived, we all stood to greet her, leaning on her cane just as she was about to invite us to sit, her eyes fixed on Victoria. My sister hadn't changed clothes and still wore that strapless dress. Sensing the old lady's gaze, she immediately forced a smile, looking very embarrassed. Mother, it was all Thomas's doing. He said he wanted me to have a baby. As soon as these words left her mouth, the old lady flew into a rage and struck her back with her cane. Shameless! Your intimacy as a couple is your private business. You're not permitted to discuss it openly, and you are absolutely forbidden from dressing so provocatively. It's disgraceful. In my previous life, a servant was dismissed by William's mother merely for wearing shorts. Since then, I had been extremely careful. It was precisely because I lived cautiously that I managed to survive in the Morgan family. Victoria might think I had a good life simply because I was with a good man, but her thinking was misguided. Why must a good life depend on others? Mother, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Victoria was sweating from the pain of being struck. Thomas also hurried to explain. Mother, it's entirely my fault. I forgot to remind her. Though he said this outwardly, inwardly, he was extremely pleased. Serves you right. I'm delighted to see you being hit. What a perverse individual. Since Victoria was a newly married daughter-in-law, William's mother chose not to belabor the point and sat down, indicating everyone should eat. William remained silent throughout the meal, but served me several dishes. While eating, I could feel Victoria's angry gaze as if she wanted to tear me apart. This only made me smile more contentedly. Thank you, husband. William's mother nodded at me with satisfaction. Olivia, after the meal, accompany William to the company to learn some business matters. As the eldest daughter-in-law of the Morgan family, you should familiarize yourself with company operations. I knew she would say this because in my previous life, she had said the same to Victoria at the dining table. But my sister had responded, "I don't want to learn. I can rely on William my entire life." She had rejected such a wonderful opportunity, so when she was later expelled from the house, she was completely destitute. "Yes, mother," I replied to the old lady. William drove me to the company. I had been trying to hear his inner thoughts, but there was nothing. A man like him wouldn't be constrained by anything and wouldn't be troubled. Upon arriving at the company, William took me to his office. "Wait here for me," he said before departing through the glass door. Through the glass, I saw him hurry to the conference room. Curious, I followed him. Inside the conference room, I observed him communicating with a European man. They were discussing selling the formula for a product the European had developed to William. Fortunately, I investigated beforehand. The Morgan family is wealthy. This product formula is worth only a few hundred yen, but this time I'll extract a fortune from the Morgan family, I heard the European thinking. I looked at him in surprise. His face remained as calm as an old dog's. You couldn't detect at all that he harbored such deceitful intentions. He quoted an exorbitant price of 3,000,000 yuan. William hesitated without responding. The European pressed his advantage. "Mr. Morgan, this product of mine will definitely generate value exceeding 3,000,000 yuan for you." Just as William was about to agree, I pushed open the door and entered. I greeted the European in English, then picked up the bottle of skincare essence he had developed. "I'm a woman familiar with skincare products. This contains only whitening ingredients. It neither prevents wrinkles nor combats early aging signs. As an engineer, you surely understand that whitening is merely a gimmick with minimal actual effect. So may I ask why your formula is worth 3,000,000 yuan?" The European was stunned. William regarded me with great interest and didn't interrupt. Realizing he allowed me to speak freely, I grew bolder. "However, this is a foreign product that you've promoted on social media, making the public familiar with and trusting your brand, so I can offer you this amount." I held up one finger. "Yi bai mo yuan." "Miss," the man asked in surprise. "Jack, 1,000,000 is quite generous. You should consider it." William stared at him intently and said, "No, no, no," I interrupted. "I'll offer you 10,000 yen. It was worth just a few hundred yen originally. 10,000 is already my absolute limit." These words astonished Jack so much that he stood up abruptly and said in broken Chinese, "Miss, who are you to make such an offer? How can I conduct business like this? Fine, I refuse to cooperate." With that, he prepared to leave. "Jack, I'll give you 1,000,000, sign the contract immediately, and then apologize to my wife," William stated. Hearing this, Jack immediately turned back, his eyes filled with joy. I didn't understand William's actions and quickly tried to stop him, but he shook his head at me, signaling me to remain silent, so I could only hold my tongue. "Mr. Morgan, you truly understand business," Jack laughed, then apologized to me. "Sorry, I didn't realize you were Mr. Morgan's wife." Then William took him to sign the contract. After signing, I asked, quite perplexed, "That item is worth only a few hundred yen. Why did you offer 1,000,000? William poured coffee and replied slowly, "You have good business acumen, but you still don't comprehend the market. Jack's formula itself isn't worth much. I knew that long ago. What interests me is the brand he created. Though brand awareness isn't particularly high now, it has already captured young women's attention. With a little more promotion, I can recoup the 1,000,000 easily." Suddenly, I understood, so that's why Jack was so confident. I was right to come here. I could learn valuable lessons. "However, I'd like to know how you knew it was worth only a few hundred yuan." William stared at me intently. I smiled awkwardly. He didn't press further. Taking this opportunity, I asked him to let me manage a branch company. In my previous life, because Thomas had no status in the Morgan family, he couldn't provide anything I truly wanted. I desperately wanted to conduct business independently and be my own boss. That way, I wouldn't need anyone's assistance. I could rely solely on myself. Once I earned enough money, I could leave. "You're quite ambitious. Don't tell me you're planning to secure the company, make money, and then abandon me." He looked at me as if he could see right through me. Damn it! How could he be even better at reading people than I was? For the first time, I felt inferior. I, a person with a special ability, was actually no match for him. This seemed to be a natural talent of his. Of course not. I simply want something productive to do. He sipped his coffee. Very well, but you must learn from me first before you can proceed. In the following days, I accompanied William to the company to learn. I acquired considerable knowledge about worldly wisdom and business skills. Surprisingly, one day, he actually took me to dine at the most luxurious Western restaurant on his own initiative. Unexpectedly, we encountered Victoria and Thomas there. Victoria was cutting steak for him when she spotted William and me. She quickly set down her knife and fork, looking at me in astonishment. "Sister, you're here too." Realizing her mistake, she hastily corrected herself. "Brother and sister-in-law, are you dining here as well?" The next second, her thoughts betrayed her. Damn it, what rotten luck running into her now. I mustn't lose face. "Yes, William and I are having dinner." I deliberately took William's arm, and he didn't object. Thomas also hurried forward to greet us. "Brother, sister-in-law." William ignored them completely and directly guided me to our seats. I saw Victoria grinding her teeth in anger behind us. She must be wondering why William hadn't beaten me and had even taken me out to eat voluntarily. When I visited the restroom, she was waiting at the door. When she saw me emerge, she looked as if she wanted to devour me whole. That expression was identical to when she had deliberately crashed into me in my previous life. "You must have been severely beaten by William in private. Stop pretending. You disgust me." Hearing this, I smiled lightly and pretended to accidentally notice the needle marks on her arm. "Oh, sister, what happened? Why do you have so many needle marks?" Panic flashed in her eyes, and she quickly covered her arm, glaring at me fiercely. It's none of your business. It's a private matter between Thomas and me. Of course, it's normal that you wouldn't know. After all, William surely hasn't touched you yet, right? Unlike Thomas, who wants me all night long. I'm exhausted. Ha ha ha. Clearly, she wasn't enjoying a good life, but she continued putting on a brave face. I genuinely wondered how long she could maintain such stubbornness. "That's wonderful. I wish you and him ever increasing happiness." After saying this, I attempted to leave, but she grabbed my hair. "Are you mocking me?" I frowned. She remained a volatile woman, just like in my previous life. As I struggled to free myself, William suddenly appeared and kicked her away. "Do you understand the punishment for disrespecting your sister-in-law?" William held me and looked down at her. I remembered it was confinement in the dungeon. My sister had sent me there once before. That place crawled with countless rats, cockroaches, and snakes, so she knew precisely what her punishment would be. Victoria's face turned ashen with fear. "Brother, it wasn't intentional. Please don't do this to me." But William wasn't the type to show mercy. Once he made a decision, he never reversed it for anyone. He instructed Thomas to take Victoria away. Thomas cursed inwardly. It would be best if she died in there. She's constantly causing problems. William escorted me back to the bedroom and examined my head. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. She just pulled my hair a bit." I pushed him away and straightened my clothes and hair myself. "However, why did you suddenly come to the restroom?" I gazed into William's pitch-black eyes. "I noticed you hadn't returned. I also wanted to ask why you got into another conflict with her." I considered for a moment. I couldn't possibly tell him that Victoria had been reborn and was deliberately targeting me, so instead I said, "Victoria claimed that she and Thomas are extremely happy, having intimate relations daily, unlike you, who haven't even touched me. That's why we argued." Hearing this, William's eyes flickered. "So you're suggesting something to me." I immediately realized my words had created a misunderstanding, and I quickly waved my hands. "No, no, no. That's not what I meant. I was simply explaining the reason for our conflict." "Olivia, have you ever considered engaging in such activities with me?" He stared at me intently. "Absolutely not," I answered immediately. "I told you I merely want to rely on you for basic financial security for the rest of my life." "Is that all?" I nodded vigorously. He said nothing more, merely slamming the door as he left. I didn't know which of my words had upset him, nor did I care to know. I simply wanted to achieve my goals. The next day, William didn't take me to the company. He instructed me to go to the branch company alone, so I began focusing on managing the branch operations. I planned to stop once I had earned 10 million yuan. Daily, I ran projects and negotiated partnerships, generating substantial profits for the company. William's mother told me to take my own compensation from these earnings. While I was happily accumulating wealth, Victoria was released from the dungeon. One day after work, as I was heading home, I saw that she had lost considerable weight, yet still wore elaborate makeup and fine clothes. She approached me, arm in arm with Thomas. "Sister-in-law, I have already requested Mother's permission to learn about the company's business from you and help alleviate some of your responsibilities." Thomas thought to himself, "Soon I will make you and William die together." I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, William had died unexpectedly, so it was Thomas who had killed him. And in this life, he not only still intended to harm William, but also wanted to harm me. I struggled to control my fluctuating emotions and looked at Victoria. "All right, come tomorrow." I deliberately said this because I wanted to uncover what devious plan she had formulated. The next second she thought, "What a fool! Just wait. Soon I'll kill you all and live carefree by myself." So she had become more calculating after her time in the dungeon. However, she didn't realize I could hear inner thoughts. How could she possibly kill me? In my previous life, William had died from poisoning. I suddenly recalled that in Thomas's basement room, I had once seen a cabinet filled with colorful potions. He regularly experimented on me with those concoctions. Sometimes they made me faint, sometimes they made me hyperactive. Now that I think about it, those must have been ingredients for creating poisons. I brought Victoria to the company and instructed her to begin as an intern. She knew how to control her emotions, agreeing to whatever instructions I gave. I knew why she had become so compliant. She was plotting a murder. Thomas wanted William and me dead, while Victoria wanted William, Thomas, and me all dead. However, based solely on her desire to kill Thomas, I could exploit this. I soon took action, seeking out Thomas without William's knowledge. I knew Thomas well. He preferred obedient women, which explained why I had remained with him so long previously. I deliberately wore a provocative outfit and approached him. "Thomas, I like you." He immediately became interested. "Sister-in-law, aren't you concerned my brother might kill you?" "I have always wanted to be with you." I bit my lip, feigning shyness. "Also, I need to tell you something. Victoria plans to poison you. Yesterday at the company, I overheard her discussing it with a man." These words instantly flushed Thomas's face with anger. "Is this true?" "Of course it's true. She said you've been beating her constantly, so she wants to kill you. She claims she wants to achieve great success on her own." Fortunately, I had memories from before, so I could manipulate them perfectly. Hearing my words, Thomas completely believed me. No one knew about his perverted behaviors, except him and Victoria. "Just wait and see how I'll punish that woman," he declared. "Sister-in-law, when I eliminate William and her, you'll be my wife, and I'll care for you forever." After saying this, he departed. Ha ha. Did he truly believe I was so foolish? I would never associate with him. I immediately sought out William. Though his life or death mattered little to me in this life, he had helped me earn money and had been meticulous in sharing professional experience. In the office, he seemed surprised when I relayed what had happened. "What evidence do you have to prove Thomas intends to harm me?" I produced a recording device and played the conversation I had just had with Thomas. The initial part contained my deliberate flirtation with him. It was so cloying that merely listening made me embarrassed. "I was just pretending to gain his trust," I quickly explained. William didn't respond, but his expression darkened. I fell silent sheepishly. The next moment, he suddenly pulled me into his arms. The scent of pine enveloped me, and I could hear his heart beating steadily. I was completely bewildered. He stared at me intently. "Olivia, I advise you not to contemplate betraying me. As long as you remain my wife, you must be loyal to me." This silly man. How had his focus shifted to this issue? "Don't worry about such matters now. The critical point is that your brother is plotting against you. What do you intend to do? We shall see if he possesses the capability. If he cannot kill me, then he will be the one who perishes." William didn't seem to take this matter seriously. That evening, he even took me to a dinner party, saying it would benefit the branch company's development and allow us to meet potential clients. When I entered with him, I sensed many evaluating gazes, all unfriendly. Men are truly despicable. I should have known better than to bring her here. William's inner thoughts suddenly emerged. I looked at his profile in surprise. His face remained expressionless, yet he could think such things. What did that mean? He noticed my gaze and looked down at me. Is something wrong? Then he thought again, so innocent. I was even more astonished. The cold, domineering executive I had imagined. How could he have such thoughts? I struggled to control my emotions and shook my head, saying it was nothing. After the dinner party, William brought me home. Thomas and Victoria were waiting for us in the living room. Victoria took the initiative to invite us to dine. Thomas stared intently at my chest, then said with a smile, "Brother, sister-in-law, today Victoria and I purchased some delicious dishes. Let's eat together." Damn it, his intention was so obvious. I really wanted to understand how William had been poisoned to death by such clumsy methods in my previous life. Looking at the table laden with appetizing food, I didn't dare take a single bite. I grabbed William's hand under the table, signaling him not to eat, but the next second he picked up the food and ate it. He moved so quickly that I couldn't even react. He even commented, "It's quite delicious. Let's all eat." As soon as he said this, joy flashed through Victoria and Thomas's eyes. I was so worried that I kept squeezing William's hand, but he remained motionless. I had clearly warned him they intended to harm him. Why would he still eat? Just as this thought crossed my mind, William and Victoria both collapsed onto the table. William's mother emerged. She angrily commanded, "Someone send these two beasts to the dungeon and never release them." "Olivia, I'm not as naive as you believe." William turned to look at me. "I had already instructed my mother to install surveillance cameras throughout the house. When I discovered Thomas had poisoned the wine, I had their poison drinks removed and replaced with sleeping pills." His voice suddenly grew quieter. "But you seemed very concerned I might die. Could it be you've fallen in love with me somehow?" When he said this, my heart raced. "No, I'm simply afraid that if you die, I'll have no one to depend on." He smiled brightly. "Is that so?" After Victoria and Thomas were confined to the dungeon, I sighed with relief. The two people I feared most had finally been neutralized. Now that I had earned sufficient money, my next step was to request a divorce from William, but he had been extremely busy lately, rarely returning home. I could only wait for an appropriate moment. One day I heard from the servants that Thomas and Victoria had been asking to see me. I visited Victoria first. Her hair was disheveled, and she appeared extremely haggard. Her eyes contained nothing but bitterness. "How could you know I planned to kill you all? How could you possibly know?" The next second, she suddenly realized the truth. "I see. You've also returned, haven't you?" I looked at her with a smile. "Sister, are you just now figuring this out?" Hearing this, she rushed to the cell door in fury, gripping the bars as if she wanted to murder me. "You're excellent at deception. You always knew Thomas was a sadist, didn't you? So you just watched me plunge into the abyss. Olivia, how could you be so cruel?" "I'm not the cruel one, you are." I stared directly at her. This face, somewhat resembling mine, she was my own sister, yet in my previous life she had killed me with her own hands. In this life, had I not been able to hear thoughts, I likely would have died as well. Thomas was your choice, and William was also your personal selection. Regardless of your choices, you're never satisfied, so you blame me, but you've never examined your own flaws. You want to depend on men, whereas I only want to rely on myself. That's the fundamental difference. But why could you be content with whomever you were paired with? You perceive that I'm content, but actually I've been working diligently behind the scenes to rescue myself. I've earned this outcome, whereas you've contributed nothing. You consistently expect others to save you, which is why you deserve your current situation." After delivering these words, I departed. Victoria roared in defiance behind me. "Just wait. Next time I definitely won't lose to you." When I approached Thomas's cell, he was meticulously folding his blanket. He remained as obsessive-compulsive as before. Seeing me, he laughed. "Olivia, you're remarkably clever and skilled at deception. Do you realize I actually believed you genuinely wanted to be with me? I was even prepared to eliminate Victoria and William, but you delivered such an unexpected surprise." This is what you deserve. Who instructed you to be so malicious? I glared at him fiercely. His face gradually merged with memories of him torturing me in various ways in my previous life. The anger within me burned even more intensely. He approached me step by step, examining me from head to toe. If I hadn't been imprisoned here, I believe your legs, your waist, your entire body would be beneath me. Then I'd inject you with a substance that would make you feel as if you were floating among clouds. Ha ha. I couldn't bear to hear more. Thomas, you'll certainly burn in hell. After saying this, I fled. Even after leaving the dungeon, my heart still raced, unable to shake the memory of Thomas's twisted grin. Fortunately, in this life, I had escaped his clutches, but the weight of everything, Victoria's betrayal, Thomas's depravity, and the constant scheming, left me feeling more determined than ever to secure my independence. I needed to finalize my plans, and that meant confronting William about the divorce. That evening, William returned home, his face etched with fatigue, but his eyes sharp as ever. He tossed his coat onto the chair and sat across from me in the dimly lit living room. The air between us felt heavy, charged with unspoken words. I tried to read his thoughts, but as usual, his mind was a fortress, silent and impenetrable. William, I began, steadying my voice, we need to talk. He raised an eyebrow, leaning back in his chair. About? I took a deep breath. I've achieved what I set out to do. The branch company is thriving, and I've saved enough money to stand on my own. I think it's time we discussed a divorce. His expression didn't change, but his eyes darkened, and for the first time I caught a flicker of something in his thoughts. She's leaving. After everything, she's still leaving. The words were laced with a quiet hurt that caught me off guard. You want to leave, he said aloud, his voice calm, but edged with something I couldn't quite place. Why? It's not personal, I said quickly, trying to keep my tone neutral. Our marriage was always a business arrangement. I told you from the start. I wanted financial security, not love. Now that I have it, I don't see the point in continuing to pretend. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, his gaze piercing. Pretend? Olivia, you've been by my side, managing my company, outsmarting my enemies, and saving my life. You call that pretending? His words hit harder than I expected. I hadn't anticipated this. William, the cold, calculating heir of the Morgan family, speaking as if our partnership meant something more to him. I tried to read his thoughts again, but they were locked away once more. I'm not saying I don't appreciate what we've built, I replied carefully, but I've always wanted to rely on myself. You know that. Staying married. It feels like I'm still tethered to someone else's power. He stood abruptly, pacing the room before stopping to face me. And what if I don't want you to go? I blinked, stunned. Why would you care? You said yourself we're just partners in a business marriage. He let out a low, bitter laugh. You really believe that's all this is? Olivia, I've watched you navigate this family's chaos, outwit your sister, and turn my branch company into a success. You think I don't see who you are? You think I don't? He stopped himself, running a hand through his hair. His thoughts broke through again. I can't lose her. Not now. My heart skipped a beat. For the first time, I realized William might actually feel something for me, something beyond our calculated arrangement. But I couldn't let myself get swept away. I had fought too hard for my independence, and I wasn't about to surrender it, not even for him. William, I said softly, I'm grateful for everything you've done. You've taught me more than I could have imagined, and you've trusted me with responsibilities I never thought I'd have. But I need to do this for myself. I need to know I can stand alone. He stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, to my surprise, he nodded. Fine. If that's what you want, I won't stop you. But know this, Olivia. Leaving doesn't mean you're free of the Morgan family. Victoria and Thomas may be locked away, but there are others who will see you as a threat. You've made a name for yourself, and that comes with enemies. His warning sent a chill down my spine, but I pushed it aside. I can handle it. He smirked, though there was no humor in it. I don't doubt you can. Over the next few weeks, I finalized the divorce papers. William didn't fight me, but he insisted on a generous settlement, claiming it was only fair for my contributions to the company. I accepted, knowing the funds would help me launch my own business, a skincare brand built from scratch, free of the Morgan name. As I prepared to leave the Morgan estate for good, I couldn't shake the unease that lingered. William's warning about enemies stuck with me, and I began to hear whispers of new thoughts, strangers plotting against me, envious of my success. My ability to read minds, once a golden advantage, now felt like a double-edged sword. Every room I entered buzzed with hidden agendas, and I realized that independence came with its own dangers. One evening, as I packed my belongings, a knock came at my door. It was William's mother, her cane tapping softly against the floor. Her sharp eyes studied me with a mix of respect and something else, concern, perhaps. "Olivia," she said, her voice firm but not unkind. "You're leaving us, but you're not leaving the game. The Morgan family's enemies don't forget, and neither do its allies. You've proven yourself capable, but capability attracts attention, good and bad." I nodded, unsure how to respond. Her thoughts were clear. She's strong, but she's naive if she thinks she can escape unscathed. "I'll be careful," I assured her. She placed a hand on my shoulder, a rare gesture of warmth. "You'd better be. And if you ever need us, the Morgan family doesn't abandon its own, even those who choose to walk away." As she left, I felt a pang of doubt. Had I misjudged William? Had I underestimated the ties I'd forged with this family? But I pushed the thoughts aside. This was my chance to redefine my life, to be the master of my own fate. Months later, my skincare brand was thriving. I had used my knowledge from the Morgan Company to create a line that rivaled even Jack's overhyped product, but with genuine quality. The public loved it, and my name, Olivia, not Mrs. Morgan, was becoming known in business circles. Yet the threats William warned about began to materialize. Anonymous letters arrived, hinting at sabotage. I overheard thoughts of competitors plotting to steal my formulas or ruin my reputation. One day, while reviewing contracts in my office, I heard a familiar voice in my mind. "She's done well, but she's in over her head." I froze, recognizing William's cadence. I looked up, and there he was, standing in the doorway, his cold demeanor softened by a faint smile. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice sharper than intended. "I heard you have been making waves," he said, stepping inside. "And waves attract sharks. Thought you might need a reminder of how to navigate dangerous waters." His thoughts flickered again. I should have fought harder to keep her. I stood, crossing my arms. "I can handle my own problems, William. I don't need a savior." "I know you don't," he replied, his voice steady. "But maybe you need a partner. Not for marriage, but for business. Someone who knows the game as well as you do." I hesitated. The idea of working with William again was tempting, but it risked pulling me back into the Morgan family's orbit. Yet, as I listened to his thoughts, "I'll protect her, whether she wants me to or not," I realized something. William wasn't just the cold air I'd once feared. He was someone who saw me, not as a pawn or a prize, but as an equal. "All right," I said finally, "a business partnership, but on my terms." He grinned, a rare, genuine smile. "Deal." As we shook hands, I heard his thoughts one last time. "This time, I won't let her go." And for the first time, I wasn't entirely sure I wanted him to. In the months that followed, William and I built a formidable partnership. My company grew, and with his strategic insight, we outmaneuvered every threat that came our way. Victoria and Thomas remained confined, their schemes reduced to bitter whispers in the dungeon. But I knew better than to let my guard down. My ability to hear thoughts kept me one step ahead, and with William by my side, not as a husband, but as a true ally, I felt unstoppable. In this new life, I hadn't just survived, I had thrived. And though I had once craved independence above all else, I learned that true strength sometimes meant knowing when to stand alone and when to stand together. If you like this incredible story, please like and subscribe to the channel to see even more of it.